shit. Rules I see don't get, but still we show respect. At the real to trade.
What's going on, guys? Welcome back to the channel, where hopefully today we'll have some good audio. Just this microphone, I said it when I put it on there. This microphone is going to drive me nuts, but I really do think it improves the audio quality, so we're gonna keep trying it. So corners done, they look really good. I'm waiting on a couple things before we send these out to paint. And so I need some rockers, but that's like literally no big deal. The last major project we have to take care of to start and really enjoying this thing without like anything looming over my head is going to be the bump stops. So I've kind of rigged a couple things up already just because I figured they'd be kind of boring to watch. So here's how I have the Jeep supported here. This is the downfall of having such long travel. It needed to droop the coilovers all the way out so I can get these springs out of here and we can drop them down and kind of measure for our bump stops in a somewhat accurate fashion. We'll get into that in a minute. But what's really cool about this whole system here is that this goes just low enough for me to compress the coilovers all the way without just leaving them on the bottom. So that just happened to work out for me. So if you got to do something like this, that actually worked really well. So went with some bump cans from TMR. I got to weld on these little clamp things, and then I went ahead and made some little brackets here. TMR actually makes some pretty cool mounts for your cans, but I just figured I could make something and save a couple bucks. I'm not going to need anything too crazy for my setup here, especially with how light this thing is going to be. And this thing is going to be so simple. So for the bumps themselves, I have these two used 2-inch travel King shocks. They are this style mount, but we're just going to use them with the compression tube clamp mount things. So these will be pretty rad. I still don't have the last pair, and I'm not really sure what I'm going to do. I think I'm just going to go with cheapies because they're just bump stops at the end of the day. I mean, you could literally shove a piece of rubber under here and be fine. So I know like even Rough Country makes some now. I'm sure they all come from the same factory in China, but yeah, we got these Kings to fool around with. I'm gonna leave them at 2-inch stroke. I'm not really too picky on all the performance particulars on these bump stops, so I don't really know what they'll be fine for what I do. So yeah, we're gonna kind of get into this today. I'd love to get everything kind of tacked up into place. These little brackets here are as simple as tack it onto the can, and then that gets tacked onto the frame. You can see that we're gonna have about a 1-inch drop here because I want my cans to hang pretty low. We have a decent amount of space between the axle and my frame, so I want these to hang kind of somewhat low. And then we're gonna run into some fun issues, not really, fun issues with the control arm, which is sitting there. It's hard for me to get the camera in there, sorry about that. But it's kinda where they have to go is somewhere back there because of that track bar location. So we're just gonna start tacking things together and we'll cycle it and we'll see how they work.
Good morning. Time to get up. These glasses, jacket and sweats, baby girl, that's a get up. It's chilly outside, but I'm ready to burn.
Alright, so perhaps one of the sketchiest parts of having to do this project without like a lift and stuff is going to be flexing the suspension out. So I wanted to droop this side out because the coilover moves in towards the frame as this thing drops out because the axle moves side to side in its path. So I wanted to make sure that I'm going to have room if I were to tuck my bump stop back there. And it appears that if I went directly behind it, I would just have enough room. And that's too close for comfort because things move. So I'm gonna probably pull it somewhere back here. We'll tie it into the coilover tower there. And maybe you can aim it forward, or it looks like I might be able to kind of come off the back of the axle and hit the control arm or something like that. We might have to relocate the brake line, but obviously it's not that big of a deal to do. So I'm gonna take this paint off. I'm gonna make some marks on where I like this, and then we're gonna bring the suspension back up and we'll place our bump stop on those marks again, and we'll see if we're happy with that, and then we'll tack it on there. One of the reasons that home builds are getting so good and just builds are getting so good in general is because the parts available to us are just, for lack of a better term, they're just so good. So for these bump cans, we're using the TMR ones. They're such a rad little kit because they come with, that's still hot. They come with like this spacer. It's just super nice hardware, but they think everything through. So they give you a 5/8 bolt, I believe, to align everything with a spacer, so that this way you can still have adequate clamping for your cans, and then you can align it on there super nice. But then once you weld it all up, it's so pretty, and you know everything's gonna work and line up. Check that out. That looks pretty good for a homebrew bump stop mount.
I went down and studying a bit and show how good
Alright, so I've been a little busy back here. This is kind of what I've come up with. Just tested it. Everything seems to be happy. It's going to be a little tricky to weld this up, but I'm not too concerned about it. Pretty interesting how strong a tack weld is, because I was able to, you know, set this thing down. And with our bump stop fully compressed, we have about a 1/2 inch of shaft showing still in the coilover, which is mint. That's like mint. Ideally, you'd want your bump stops out further, but I think that's going to take enough of the pressure off of the coilover itself that we won't hurt anything, and they will do their job. So we're going to tie these plates right here into the axle truss so it's all not on the control arm, and then we should be good to go on this side. Hopefully it's just as easy as replicating this on the other side. All right, fresh day. What a beautiful day it is to work on a Jeep too. It's like 70 degrees right now. Incredible. So I showed in the last clip, I believe, that we have the passenger side all just about done. I want to just kind of tie the pad into the truss real quick, but otherwise, there she is. I think this little brace I put in there is kind of ugly, but once it's all painted up, it really helps clean that up. So before I go ahead and permanently burn the bump itself onto the frame, I'm gonna do the other side. And then we can kind of do some testing and make sure everything's happy. So now we're gonna work on this side. So last night I got as far as putting a little notch in my mount here so we can clear the tower brace thing. It's gonna go something like that. So I guess in short, simple way to put the processes of this would be to droop the axle down to mount your bump, and then bring your axle up to the 2 inches of travel, or whatever your travel of your bump is. In my case, it's 2 inches. So bring it up to 2 inches, and then make your pad. So I'm gonna drop this down. Yeah, I really don't want to, but I think it's for the better. So this is what I mean by putting the axle at full droop. You see how close that is right now? In theory, you're gonna have to watch doing alignments on this thing, but it shouldn't get any closer than that. And I really don't want to pitch this thing any further back, because then I'll have to do some crazy filling here. I mean, these welds probably really aren't doing much anyway in here, but I'd still prefer to be able to get in there and weld this nicely. I'm still gonna have to build up like in that cavity there to get good contact, but this is at full maximum droop, which should be all right. We'll clear the slider and everything, so I'm hoping that's gonna be the ticket there. So now I'm gonna pull the axle back up to that like 2 inch travel mark. We'll make sure everything's gonna line up, and I'll have something to hit with the bump stop, and we'll start tacking things together. All right, so just like the other side, we're gonna have to relocate where I had my brake line mounted. I'm trying to do this without causing leaks. It looks like I already kind of messed up this line. I feel like we're probably gonna end up redoing this. But we're just gonna put this tab on the top of the axle here. I've already kind of marked it. And we're just gonna drill it out, tap it, and we'll be on our way. All right, well, we got everything welded on, and I realize I'm doing a pretty bad job at filming, but you guys kind of see everything I have here, and it's just a lot of cutting and fire and sparks and stuff. But now we're ready to put the coilover back on. This is the worst part about coilovers, is actually getting these spacers into the mount. But once we get this on there, we should be good to go. We'll let all this cool down, we'll clean it up, we'll paint it, and she's gonna look pretty, and then we can move on to the rear.
He's still in the ignition. All the cops were buzzing from somebody's bad decision.
I'm gonna be honest, I really didn't feel like filming, but I don't know. We gotta make content for the boys. So I'm at the point now where I'm gonna cut out some little brackets for the rear bumps. I got another pair of TMR bump cans. Here it is, it's on there. And we're gonna do something pretty similar to the front. Except in the rear, we don't have to make a pad for it. I think the lower control arm here will suffice. I'm going to aim to hit I'm going to aim to hit the X on the TMR lowers here. It's really not the strongest point for me to hit, but I think it's gonna look the best. Unfortunately, we're gonna have like a huge like standout here from the frame. There's really not too much I can do about it, but we'll be able to play with it a little bit and make it look a little bit better. Maybe lean it back so it's not like just an extra shock here. And I know if my tires clear the coilovers where they are, we'll be pretty safe back here with the bump stop. I mean, alternatively, I could maybe like cut out the part of the tower and kind of like French this in there almost, and then hit the top of the tube, but I don't know, I think just hitting the X here would be... It's actually one of the most controlled spots to hit this because that's your pivot point, and I'm actually pretty close to the pretty far outside the axle, so there is no... I don't know what the term would be, I can't think of it right now, but anyway, this is a pretty good spot for me to hit, and I think with my setup, I don't really think we're gonna have too much of an issue here. I'm not in the desert hitting whoops and stuff, so I'm not too concerned about bashing that X in. So basically we're just gonna build some quick little brackets to go from the cans to the frame, and then we'll have to do something fancy for the inside here to tie in the coilover tower. And yeah, so I'm just gonna get to work on cutting out some metal, and we'll see what we can come up with.
Let them see you when you jump across the fence. Somebody stole a beer truck, it don't matter who it was. Grab a can and drink it up, best keep your mouth shut. Man, we're good to go, yeah, we hit the mother load. There's more than enough for all of us, somebody stole a beer truck.
So these two here, these two bolts that you get from TMR are to, they're like a little jig to keep a proper spacing of 1/4 inches so you can still have a clamping force on your cans here. So it's nice that they come with these little guys, so you just kind of place these right on there, and there you go. It'll keep your gap nice and consistent so that you have a clamping force so you can clamp onto your bumps. And then what's actually really nice about these is if they're not perfectly aligned, the actual bolts that they give you to clamp your bumps in are smaller. So these are probably 7/16, and I think these are probably 1/4. And so if these aren't perfectly aligned, you'll have a lot of wiggle room to get these in there no matter how you align these. Super nice touch by TMR.
Go splashing in the creek. You can get as rowdy as you damn near wanna be.
Alright, so I set the bump stop in here at full articulation, which means the other side was full droop and this side was full stuff, and the bump stop worked perfectly. Now I have the axle lifted up under the center, so this would simulate just bottoming out, like maybe hitting whoops or going down the road with a heavy load or something, I suppose. I don't think this scenario is going to be as common as flexing out the suspension fully, because you at least have 2 coilovers to soak up the weight. So I don't know if I'm too concerned about this right now, but I do think the solution would just be to build an angled bump pad. So if when it was at full articulation, the bump stop was hitting further this way on the bracket, and that is actually angled up a little bit. So when the axle is not articulated and it's not moving at all. The bump stop is hitting further over here. So if I were to build an angled pad that's taller on the outside here, and pretty much probably just right to the bracket on the inside here, I think we'd be good to go. Same thing as we did on the front. We added a little bit of angle in there to ensure that at all the angles, those bump stops work. So I think I'm still really happy with this. We're just gonna have to build a quick little bump pad. And I honestly don't think I'm going to be hitting bumps so much that we're doing like a full squatted smash of the bumps. So I'm more concerned about articulation when the whole entire weight of the Jeep is on that shock. So I think we're gonna be all right. I'm going to just copy this stuff on the other side, and we should be on our way with this project.
We parked it over here, we parked it over there, we parked it in the barn, yeah, we parked it everywhere.
All right, everybody, happy 4th, by the way. Tonight, the last thing I think I have to do under the Jeep for a long time is going to be to get some welds on these bump stop mounts. So I'm pretty happy with how everything is working and functioning. We got to get some weld right there, something on the inside of that as well. And then we got a couple vertical passes to do here. And that'll wrap up this bump stop project. I'm pretty excited to be done with that. So fortunately, the camera is out of battery, and I have like 40 minutes left of memory, and the microphone is about to die as well. So there's probably not going to be any B-roll on this, and I'll probably have to come back down another day this weekend to finish up this video. So I don't know. I'm just going to break out the welder, put on some tunes, and knock this out. And I don't know. I guess I'll catch you guys in like a day or so. Psych. We got an iPhone, baby. Totally forgot how capable these things are. I've actually filmed like a dozen videos on my iPhone. A lot of actually like big YouTubers actually just use their iPhone like solely. So yeah, we're gonna finish this up tonight. Look at this. It's quiet. See, nothing. And we got everything prepped, ready to go. We're gonna hit a couple vertical welds here. Pretty excited to see what we can do with the new helmet here. This has actually made like a huge difference as far as I can tell. You can actually see through here like super nice. See that? And let me compare that to my Miller helmet that I had been using. This is the helmet that came, whoa! This is the helmet that came with the welder. Let's see if I can get the camera in there. Headgear's in the way. Do you see the difference between that now? So this is the Miller Classic helmet, which is only $100, came with the welder, so can't complain. It was great to learn with. Now check this out. Compared to that again. Night and day difference. Night and day difference. Not to mention how much more comfortable this one is. So we're just gonna take our time, get our settings right, and see what kind of welds we can lay down, baby. All right, the welding went pretty well, actually. I'm like shaking because I'm so happy to be done with this part of it. There we go. That's what they're gonna look like. I do actually eventually want to add like a top cap onto here. Also because this is off the frame a little bit. So I would like to put something like to keep this from trying to like bend anything. This Jeep is super light. And again, I'm not like bashing in the dunes or anything. So I think we're gonna be okay just as is. But there they are. There's our pad. That's how it's gonna look. Unfortunately, I ran out of steel it. I did the whole frame and like all my parts and steel it, so I just want to keep that going. That stuff is just crazy expensive. I really don't even, it coats nicely. It coats extremely nicely. But the whole like weld through thing would be like emergency only. Like it sucks to weld through. So just to keep everything matching, I'm gonna wait for the steel it to come in. We'll coat these all in black, all nice and pretty. And I still need to order 2 more bump stops. I don't think I'm gonna get Kings because I have Fox coilovers, and I actually don't think the Fox bumps are that expensive. So it'd be kind of nice to keep everything like all matchy. But yeah, super happy with how these welds came out. Not too shabby. They're definitely gonna hold. This side, oh my gosh, it has got to be at least like 95 degrees in the shop right now. I am dripping bullets, but dang. Working in this heat was totally worth it. It's a Friday night and I can now go have some fun and sleep tonight knowing that this project is wrapped up. I'm just gonna bolt like the coilovers back in. Yeah, I guess I could put everything back down because when I need to paint that, I could just jack the thing up and you know, droop the suspension. I should be able to get to everything relatively good. Woo, let's go, baby. Well, I actually totally lied and I'm not gonna assemble everything because I need to get a slightly longer bolt for my coilover just because of how things landed. And then I need to relocate my brake line here because I want to keep this out of the way of the bump travel. The other day I actually lowered the axle down and the line here got caught up on here. And so that was a little sketchy. So I think I'm gonna kind of do something like this. It kind of looks a little funny to have the brake line mounted on top of the axle, but at the end of the day, it's gonna work the best. And then I can put like a little tab or a zip tie somewhere to like kind of keep the line here. The beauty of the rear axle is that this doesn't have to move as on the front axle, like when the knuckles turn, the brake line moves. So in the rear, you don't really have to worry about that as much. And I can kind of just like, I don't know, I could even weld like a little tab here and, you know, put a zip tie on this to keep this in between everything. So what's actually really cool is the shop that had this axle before me, they actually just welded a bolt to the axle, which is super smart actually. I actually have like weld-on tabs, but that's just really clever. So I think I'm just gonna do that same thing somewhere like right here. We don't have to make a new line. I can put a little tab here to keep anything from rubbing. And I think that's gonna actually work out like super nice. So I think that's gonna wrap it up for this video. Yeah, I'm just gonna wrap it up for this video because I wanna be able to edit this weekend. And then in the next video, we're gonna wrap up all sorts of things and we're going to install these taillights that I got. And then I kind of think we're ready to give this thing some insurance and drive her around and make sure all the monitors work and then maybe enjoy it for a little bit, finally. So, all right. Thank you guys all so much for your support. You can follow me at I'd Rather Be Jeeping on Instagram. Some of you found me on Facebook, that's cool, whatever. Sell me your cool stuff, basically. And I'll catch you guys in the next one. Peace.
The beer was gone. Somebody stole a beer truck. It don't matter who it was. Grab a can and drink it up. Let's keep your mouth shut. Man, we're good to go. Yeah, we hit the mother load. There's more than enough.